So welcome to tonight's meeting of the Eastleigh Local Area Committee, which is being broadcast and recorded via Microsoft Teams Live. My name is Councillor Tina Campbell. I am chair of this committee and will be conducting the meeting this evening. During the meeting, you will hear from members of the committee who are on your screen now. Also present are the officers from Eastleigh Borough Council, who are now on the screen. They will present their reports that have been written and provide support for the committee tonight. If we experience a connection problem, this event will be paused. If a councillor loses connection or joins later, I will ask them to introduce or reintroduce themselves for the benefit of the viewers. In the unlikely event of myself losing connection, the Vice Chair, Councillor Alex Bourne, will take over. We always welcome people to speak at the meeting. Although this is a formal committee meeting of Eastleigh Borough Council and not a public meeting. Public participation during this virtual committee will be undertaken in a slightly different way. The members of the public that have registered to speak will be invited into the live event at the relevant agenda item and will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak. A verbal 30-second advance warning will be provided by the local area manager. People wishing to speak on an item on the agenda are able to do so before the debate starts. However, once the debate has started, it is not possible to invite or receive comments from the floor. We want to be as inclusive as possible, but will not tolerate any disruptions to our meeting. Should there be any disruption, we do have the power under the Council's constitution to remove people from the meeting or to continue in private, neither of which we take lightly or wish to do. Okay, so item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Laura, do we have any apologies this evening?
No, we have a full house, Chair.
Thank you. So item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest they wish to make? If so, please indicate now, and when called, please state the nature and reason for your interest. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody declare an interest. Councillors, you can of course declare any interest should they occur to you at a later point in the meeting. So now moving to item 3, which is the minutes. I'd like to move the minutes of the meeting of the 19th of January 2021. Before I do that, I would like to say that we did receive late this afternoon an email from Mr. Payne, who wanted to make some comments about the minutes, and just to say that that we will be following up with Mr. Payne on those points that he raised after the meeting. So, councillors, can I sign the minutes off as a true record, please? Do I have a proposer?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Irish. All agreed. Can you please unmute to signal your agreement?
Yes.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 4, which is public participation. I don't believe that there is any public participation on this occasion. Is that correct, Laura?
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you. So moving swiftly on to Chair's report. I don't have a Chair's report this evening because our session is so close to the previous meeting. I just have one sort of, I guess, public service announcement, if anything. Hopefully everyone's aware that central government have confirmed that local elections are planned to still go ahead on the 6th of May. So in this area we have county, borough, parish and the police and crime commissioner elections all taking place. Obviously all precautions will be taken to make polling stations as COVID safe as possible. However, we do understand that some residents may still feel very anxious about visiting a polling station to cast their vote. So you might want to think about applying for a postal vote. And to do this, you just need to complete a postal vote application form, which you can get from the council, and return that to Eastleigh House by the 20th of April at 5 p.m. And I know that might seem a long time away, as we are at the moment, but every year we get some people who have left it too late and they've missed the opportunity. And obviously this year things are taking a little bit longer than they would normally do. So I would urge you, if you want to have a postal vote, then please apply as soon as possible. Thank you. So moving swiftly on, that takes us to the first substantive item on the agenda this evening, which is the Eastleigh Town Centre COVID Recovery Plan update. So can I ask Officer Callie Sparks, please, our Sustainable Transport Planner, to present her report.
Good afternoon, councillors. So just to introduce the report very briefly, the road closures within Eastleigh were introduced back in June 2020 to provide additional space for social distancing and to create a safe environment for trading in the town centre. So encouraging people to come back into town and shop locally, but encouraging people to walk and cycle. Since the scheme was introduced, we've made a number of changes to address some of the concerns that have been raised by businesses and local residents. So that includes increasing the distribution and the number of disabled parking bays around the town, the provision of drop-off and pick-up parking spaces on Lee Road, an exemption for funerals and weddings, a bus stop that provides for the community transport service. We've offered a parking offer, so people were able to take advantage of an extra hour free when parking in the town centre. And we've held various public events and performances in the town centre, including the craft market around the Christmas run-up and hanging baskets and planters in the summer. And since the 15th of June, when the road closures came into effect and non-essential shops reopened, footfall in the town centre increased week on week until the COVID restrictions became kind of ramped up in the winter. So footfall since the 5th of January of this year has been very slightly higher than seen throughout the first lockdown. So comparing the first 16 days of the lockdown this year, we've seen approximately 4,700 people per day, and that compares to 4,300 in March when the first national lockdown came into effect. And looking at the same period, we'd normally see around 7,000 people in the town centre. So at the beginning of January, the UK was moved into the highest alert level and a new national lockdown was imposed, which included the closure of all schools until at least the 8th of March. And in that window, the UK's vaccine rollout also started. So that began in December and aims to offer vaccination to millions of adults over the age of 50 by May. But we've seen a more transmissible strain become more prevalent in the UK, and hospital admissions are still currently higher than have been seen in the first wave of the pandemic. And so social distancing remains a key part of the UK strategy in tackling COVID-19. It's likely that social distancing will still be required beyond the current end date of the scheme, which closed the roads, which currently ends on the 21st of April of this year. And so it's proposed to extend the temporary traffic regulation order by a further 8 months, taking the end date up until the 15th of December 2021, so this year. That takes the maximum duration of the road closures to 18 months in total. The road closures remain a temporary measure that we feel is proportionate to the level of risk posed by COVID-19, and it forms part of our response to the pandemic. We're working with Hampshire County Council on designs for temporary improvements to the town centre, which includes changing the entrances to the closures, providing planting, seating, cycle parking. That work has taken longer than we would have hoped, but we are starting to see progress made now. And those improvements to the town centre, none of them would prevent the roads from reopening if needed. So they've all been designed to be flexible enough to allow the roads to reopen. And as part of this work, the County Council will be undertaking a 21-day public consultation on the proposals. That will be carried out in mid-March, and we'll be promoting that to businesses, visitors, local residents, and encouraging people to give their feedback on the scheme. We really want to hear from people about what they think and how they feel about the changes that we're making to the town centre. And I think the final thing to say is I'd just stress that at this point, we're not asking for any decisions to be made around the long-term plan for the town centre. The changes to the scheme duration don't prevent the roads from being reopened if social distancing measures are no longer required. And we'll continue to monitor and assess the scheme and review the decision about whether to reopen, so that we can act if changes are needed. I mean, we do hope to hear from central government about the roadmap they've been talking about for kind of getting the economy up and running again, and that's expected to be published later this month. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to review the decision between now and April. And I guess partly the reason that we're taking the decision forward at this point is so that we're prepared. So we don't get to April and then think, what do we do now? What do we do now? We want to be prepared. And that's it from me.
Lovely, thank you, Callie. So I believe that we have two members of the public who wish to speak on this item. However, one of them, unfortunately, we were going to have Lorraine Gardner with us this evening, and councillors, I'm sure will remember that Lorraine addressed us one of the previous times that we looked at this issue, but unfortunately at the last minute she wasn't able to attend. So I believe we've got a statement which Guy is going to read out for us.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I'll read it now. So, following our feedback regarding the impact of the ongoing town centre road closures in Eastleigh were having on small local businesses and the sections of the local community at the online ELAC meeting on September the 15th, 2020, we're pleased to provide the committee with an updated impact statement and overview of the situation as we find it now, 5 months on. As part of our input into September's meeting, Eastleigh Town Centre Action Group tabled a raft of possible alternatives to the total closure of both Market Street and High Street, as well as making the committee aware of the significant negative impact the closures were having on many businesses and their ability to trade viably going forwards. Unfortunately, all of the compromises we put forward at the meeting as possible ways of working to support both the council's stated intentions to keep the residents and visitors of Eastleigh safe during the COVID pandemic and to enable businesses to hit hard by the first lockdown and resulting trading restrictions to begin to recover were dismissed as unworkable, too difficult or too expensive. Neither, sadly, were our genuine concerns about the survival of our businesses treated with anything approaching serious consideration by the committee. Much lip service has been paid by EBC regarding how they are working closely with the town centre businesses in order to support them through this incredibly challenging period, with repeated claims in the Borough newsletter, various other leaflets and on the council's website that communication and consultation is at the top of the agenda in all their dealings. However, this is not then and is not now our experience. We are continually frustrated as a business community at the lack of transparency over the road closures, having been promised repeatedly that we would be kept informed of any developments or decision making that would directly impact our ability to operate our business successfully. However, last week we discovered that once again the businesses in the bid area directly impacted by this ongoing situation were not informed of the meeting or of this hugely important agenda item, as the council's decision to impose the initial road closures and the subsequent decisions to extend them beyond the first lockdown and then on into April this year were all challenged by the Action Group and a petition raised. We were once again extremely disappointed and dismayed to have received no notice of this meeting directly and no opportunity to formulate a response or to request a meeting with BID or EBC to discuss our concerns prior to the meeting. An extension of a further 8 months to December of the current road closures in their present form, with no discussion about the ways to mitigate its effect on town centre businesses, is both badly timed and incomprehensible. With the current closures already locked in place until the end of April this year, and only 12 days before the government is due to announce a possible end to the current national lockdown, as well as a package of measures designed to ease restrictions in a cautious and appropriate manner, all of which we support, it seems wholly unnecessary and rushed and a rather murky course of action. The road closures are not and never have been purely about keeping people safe from COVID. Our 4-metre wide pavements, social distancing messages and the heroic efforts made by every business in the BID area to make their shops and venues COVID safe have been more than sufficient to achieve that. Instead, it appears that the establishment of a scheme of pedestrianisation by the back door has been and is being pursued. The failure of local businesses being the price the council seems prepared to pay to attain it. Once more, we ask that the committee and the wider council meet us halfway and agree to look seriously this time at the many suggestions we, the town centre community, have to offer as a way to make Eastleigh not only a safe and attractive town, but one with a living, thriving economy. Yours sincerely, Eastleigh Town Centre Action Group.
Thank you, Guy. Callie, I don't know if you want to make any response to the statement, or would you like to hear from our other speaker first and then deal with them both afterwards?
It would be great to hear from the BID, yeah, if that's all right, to listen just to the other response and then I can make comments after.
No problem at all.
Thanks.
So I'm very pleased to say that I think we have Steve Shaw with us this evening, who is chair of the BID, Eastleigh BID. Steve, are you with us?
I hope so.
Yeah, lovely. We can hear you loud and clear, so that's fantastic. So the floor is yours, and if you would just like to tell the committee how you and your BID members feel about the proposal to extend the road closure, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to talk today. We appreciate it. So whilst the BID recognises the need to proceed with caution during these challenging times, this report clearly covers more than just that. We have a desire to work closely with ELAC, the council and the levy payers to pave the way for a brighter and rejuvenated future for the town centre, but not at the cost of the businesses struggling to survive in the here and now. The BID has not had the opportunity to fully consult with the levy payers about this extension and are therefore not able to specifically speak on their behalf tonight. We believe this is an oversight and one that we would appreciate the time to rectify. As you're aware from the last meeting and indeed again today, in this meeting, there are those that believe the full closures are unnecessary and actually compound the difficulties the local businesses are currently experiencing. With this in mind, we would like to suggest delaying the vote on this issue until the next ELAC meeting in March. This would give time for the changes to be made either way, but more importantly, however, it will allow you to make an informed decision based on giving us the opportunity to liaise with the council and do our duty for the levy payers. We would like to propose a prompt, objective consultation and/or survey in partnership with the council. The raw results would then be provided directly to yourselves. If the decision today cannot be delayed, we would like to reiterate that reviews, as mentioned in Callie's report, are vital and that we would like to be a proactive core to them, again in collaboration with the levy payers and the council, and that the first review should be as soon as practically possible to explore every opportunity to adjust these closures to support the businesses and aesthetically to encourage a better shopping environment for the people. We still, unfortunately, do not believe the current setup has at any point encouraged shoppers into Eastleigh and are dedicated to ensuring the damage is minimised in any way possible if the roads do remain closed. We acknowledge the report specifies temporary closure, thank you, the potential to reopen at any time, thank you, and that reviews are planned, but we would appreciate further reassurance. So my questions are three, if you don't mind, Chair. One, will you consider delaying for 4 weeks to allow a proper consultation as promised to our district so we can show the businesses' concerns are being acknowledged? Two, can we schedule some sort of regular, possibly monthly review period with the bid, allowing us to prepare in advance, not in retrospect, our objective concerns and ideas from those very same businesses? And finally, three, moving forward, can we agree a structure to work transparently with all parties involved on the exciting parts so we can play our part in the additional report objective of promoting Eastleigh and encouraging people to shop again, ensuring we get the very best value for money for the businesses that are there now, as well as those for the future. So I have my 3 minutes. I think that's pretty close, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to contribute.
Thank you very much, Steve. We're very pleased that you were able to be with us this evening. So I'm going to ask Callie firstly to respond to those two statements that we've heard, and then obviously some of the issues I'm sure we will then pick up as councillors when we have our turn and debate the report. So Callie, over to you.
So I think the first thing I'd say is that the scheme remains a temporary measure. So the extension to the legal order just gives us flexibility, and obviously things have changed quite dramatically in the last few months. No one, I think, was expecting to be back in a full lockdown on the 5th of January. That's been a frustration and a disappointment to us all, and we do understand how much businesses are feeling the impact of these restrictions. I think in Eastleigh the number of cases is much higher than we've previously seen. We know that that our hospitals are currently kind of overwhelmed by COVID cases, and so there really is a kind of public health reason for the closures remaining in place. We want to provide people with that extra space so that they can shop in the town centre with confidence. And much of the feedback that we get from the public through social media has been positive in that people feel safe within that shopping environment. There is spare capacity in all of our car parks in the town centre, so if people want to come into town by car, there is still lots of car parking available in the Swan Centre, in Lee Road, in Hands Way, but also on-road car parking available on Blenheim Road. That's remained available to members of the public who wish to park on street. The work with Hampshire to change the feel of the town centre and make it more welcoming, make it nicely designed, make it more accessible. That work has taken much longer than we had hoped. But I do think that we're going to be in a position to go out to consultations soon on some of those proposals, and we'll be encouraging people. So we'll be visiting businesses and encouraging them to give us feedback on that scheme. That will ask three main kind of areas of questioning. So it will ask about people about their views on the proposed changes. It will ask them about what else they might like to see within the town centre, and it will ask them about their views for the longer term vision for Eastleigh. So we will be having a consultation with the public in the next few weeks. in terms of a delay, so partly the reason that we've come to this committee meeting is with this decision is that we head into PERDA ahead of the local elections in May, and so decisions are restricted during that period. That starts on the 22nd of March, which is a slightly awkward timing, I guess, for this decision. In order for a delay, effectively, we wouldn't be able to make a decision until May after the election, which is why we've brought it forward early. But that wouldn't stop us from having a review period, so we can review the decision during PERDA, and then we can review it directly after the elections as well. Mainly, the reasons for changing the closure would relate to changes in government restrictions around COVID and social distancing requirements. And so we obviously anticipate, we're looking forward to hearing more from the government about how they see the lockdown being eased and when that might happen. And that will definitely form part of the information that we use to determine when the roads closures should come to an end. I think just in terms of just Steve, in terms of the engagement with the bid, we have invited the bid manager along to our review meetings, so we have those quite regularly, and we welcome the bid to put forward any proposals. We'd happily investigate and explore options for other arrangements, and we're happy to work with businesses, so if they have any particular issues around access, for them to contact us directly and for us to work with that individual business to address those issues. And we've done that with a number of businesses in the town centre already. So we're always happy to talk with people who might be suffering from access issues.
Okay, I can see that Steve would like to respond. And normally we don't sort of get into an engagement in that way, but on this occasion I am going to allow that. So Steve, if you would like to come back online and ask your question, that would be absolutely fine.
Hiya,
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, Kelly. I think specifically what we're asking, the bid manager has sat in a recent meeting on the 21st, and I think we would like to engage in a more collaborative venture together moving forward, a lot more transparent, advance notice. So I think we're just asking to build on that, I guess, Kelly, in a very gentle way. The businesses come to us every single day, and they don't believe that we are representing them properly. The only way that we can do that is by getting more involved in this, and hopefully there's some collaborative way that we can actually bring their suggestions to the table, and we can look at them at different times, because yes, there are COVID safety issues, but there are also arguments that the footfalls aren't high enough to warrant the full closures. I don't have all the facts and figures in front of me, Kelly, but I think that's enough. Theories out there, so we need to look into it a little bit deeper and actually acknowledge some of these business concerns and queries as a like a portal for you guys, rather than having to sit down with them all individually one by one. We can probably help you with that, and certainly they are using us as a portal, so we're here. It's very emotive in the town centre. Let's work together on it, please.
Lovely, thank you very much for that, Steve. So I'm now going to open it up to councillors. Do you have any questions you would like to ask Callie? If you can indicate in chat, please, if anyone wishes to ask a question. Councillor Tyson Payne.
Good evening, Callie. Thank you very much for your report. So from what I heard, in your response to Stephen is that although PERDA occurs on the 22nd of March, it would be possible for us to meet to discuss this again before that date. If we as a committee could find a day, as long as it's before the 22nd of March, that is doable. Is that what you said? And then we take another decision in May.
So the current road closure comes to an end on the 21st of April, and I think that's the date that's that requires an early decision, because if you do wish to extend closer to the April date, then we wouldn't be able to make a decision at that point. I think the agenda for your next meeting is pretty full. And so we'd brought the decision to this meeting. Laura might be able to give a further explanation on whether it's possible to take it to a different meeting or an exceptional meeting. I'm not sure. Sorry, Laura.
Thank you, Callie. What I would say is that you could potentially take it to the 22nd of March. I would argue that this is possibly business as usual. What I will say is that there is simply not enough room in the calendar to arrange an exceptional meeting for this. We are incredibly busy between now and the start of PERDA. We have meetings at least 2 nights most weeks between now and then, and I just simply don't think there is room for staff or councillors to have them in their diaries. We are struggling to fit pre-meetings in for anything, so between pre-meetings and normal meetings I don't think it's feasible to put them in, and also the turnaround of reports and agendas again on staff and officers both writing the reports and publishing agendas. I simply don't think it's feasible to get it in before then. We would need to take some further advice on whether it would be feasible to take it on the 22nd of March, which is the first day of the pre-election period, but it is a business as usual decision, and it could potentially still be taken then. It may fit on the agenda, but I don't think we at this point could put an extraordinary meeting in the calendar.
I mean, just to add to that, Laura, that making the decision to extend the order obviously doesn't change kind of much until the 21st of April. And we will be obviously looking to see how lockdown restrictions change between now and that date. So if all the social distancing requirements are alleviated between now and April, we may have reopened the roads before that date. So the duration of the order isn't the thing that determines how long the closures are in place for. Do you sort of mean? So perhaps the timing of the decision isn't quite so critical because that decision is under review constantly.
Okay, thank you for that, Callie. I agree. I think that is a really important point that we need to make clear, that just because the decision is taken, if the decision is taken tonight, this is just about having the mechanism in place so that if we need this to continue after the April the 21st, that can still happen, because at that point we will be well into PERDA and it would be extremely difficult for us to meet at that point. So that's why it's happening now. But if I've understood you correctly, what you're saying is that that decision tonight may never even go into effect, or it may not last till December.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. OK, so I'm going to take Councillor Bourne in. You have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. One issue I've seen around the town recently during the day, but especially during the evenings, is the delivery and especially the Uber drivers that are the only people allowed to pick up from McDonald's now, parking wherever they want on double yellow lines, in the bus stop, near Cafe Nero where the bollards are. I think it's a serious issue. I just wondered if there's any thoughts on what we can do to obviously stop illegal parking, but then help them because obviously they're providing a valuable service to the residents? Thank you.
We have been discussing this issue internally. So me and Rob Saunders, the parking manager, have been discussing this issue. So partly there's an element of enforcement, so making sure that we have a way of enforcing to ensure that illegal and inappropriate parking isn't taking place. Partly it's about encouraging good behaviour in those drivers, so engaging with the businesses and those individuals to ensure that they understand the impact that they're having by parking inappropriately. And partly it's about making sure that there's adequate provision. So within Eastleigh, there are a number of loading bays which are available for use. Often these drivers are visiting the town centre for short periods of time, and so they're looking for a place where they can park conveniently for themselves, thinking that they won't be there for that long. But often, you know, orders aren't ready when they arrive, and so actually they're there for longer than perhaps they anticipate. We do know it's a problem, and we are looking at it. It's quite difficult, particularly for drivers who perhaps don't wish to pay for parking, and where a parking permit, which has a fee attached to it, might not be an attractive offer. So we are looking at this because we understand it's an issue, but there's a few different things that need to happen. I think partly reporting individual drivers to their employers to ensure that we get a good level of behaviour is, you know, that's part of the solution, I think.
Thank you.
Any? Oh, yep, we have Councillor Tyson Payne has another question.
Sorry, Callie. So I don't know whether this is concerns or a question really. I am concerned that the bid and the Eastleigh Town Centre Action Group don't feel included. And I wonder if you feel they have been included and there's just some misunderstanding, or whether there is more that could be done to really hear what they're saying. I think Stephen was very measured and very polite. I just wonder if we could be doing more to make sure they feel engaged.
The first conversations around the proposal to extend the order only happened in the first couple of weeks in January, when we're in the middle of a second wave of the pandemic, and the national lockdown restrictions were introduced, and we started to think about what might happen in April. So what's the likelihood of us being kind of out of the pandemic and on the road to recovery? We have included the bid in meetings, and we've been pleased to see Teresa coming along to those sessions. Obviously, we want them to feel that they can participate and that we're being transparent. We're not holding anything back from the bid, but we'll definitely have a chat about what other types of information they might find useful, and how else we can help them to engage with their members. I think partly for the bid, there's been a slight challenge in that individual members, our officers, have a view, but perhaps they haven't surveyed their members to gather a collective view. So perhaps that has been a slight issue in that they, the organisation is intended to represent their membership, but perhaps they're not entirely sure. And to be honest, I can understand the difficulties in this, because there are very opposing views. We've seen it from the feedback that we've had to our consultations, that some people really love it and some people really don't. And often there's a few people in the middle as well. So there isn't a single point of view on this scheme. I guess it's, you know, the added difficulty is added in, isn't it, that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and that people are finding it difficult to, you know, it's a difficult situation for businesses particularly, and it's something that visual and physical that they can, you know, that they can point to, whereas, you know, the lockdown measures are slightly more intangible, I'd say.
Okay, thank you very much, Callie. I see that Stephen wants to come back in. I will allow this one more time, and then we're going to have to move on. But Stephen, if you can turn your camera back on. Yep, floor's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Very quickly. Firstly, thank you for the thought and support there. Callie, we are working very differently in an effort to present you with an objective data set with any of the proposals that will be brought forward, which is why we've asked for a proactive approach between the two groups, and enough time to allow us to speak to everybody, so everybody has a say, because the people that are more passionate within the town centre, their views are going to be very obvious, and we are there to represent the majority of the levy payers, and I'm very dedicated to ensuring that that's the message that comes across. So hopefully, in line with everybody's thoughts here, we'll be able to show you that. But that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your reassurances there, Stephen. Callie, did you want to say anything else in response at this stage?
I think just that that we look forward to working with the bid on the proposals, and you know, and seeing what comes back through the consultation process, and obviously looking to see what happens in terms of social distancing requirements in future.
Okay, thank you. Guy, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, it was only just to reassure Steve. I know he's been having conversations with both Natalie and Nick Tustian, our chief exec, and it was just to reiterate the desire to work more closely with the bid. We have made some progress in understanding that, and we certainly intend to do more in the near future. And I may well be joining a group. I know you've got a regular meeting with Natalie Wigman, our director, but so I personally also will try to join in that meeting and explore what opportunities we have to make a improved dialogue with us going forward. So I hope that was just a bit of additional reassurance from our side to you, Steve, on that particular point.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Guy. Are there any more questions from members? I don't think there are. Sorry, Okay, so at that stage then, I'm now going to ask, can I have a proposer for the report, please?
Yes, Chair, I'd be happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Irish. So we move into debate. Who would like to speak on this topic? Silence from the floor. No one wants to speak. Oh, Councillor Bourne, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to hear that we are going to be collaborating with Hampshire County Council for the cosmetic changes improvements, and I think that's a really welcome thing, because people have long said that some of the barriers look uninviting, etc. So anything we can do in that respect is brilliant, along with the 21-day public consultation. So I urge all residents, businesses and anyone who wants to visit Eastleigh to get involved and let us know your feelings. You know, this is not, as I've seen on social media, this is not a decision that is going to be made without consultation. This is going to be a decision made with you know, full consultation to do the best we can for Eastleigh. You know, it's a very polarised debate. You know, there might not be one you know, shut or open. It might be something in between. We don't know, because we need to hear everybody's view. So it's so important that people don't just air their views on social media. They get involved in the consultation and let the council know, you know, what they feel about the proposals. I will say though that Eastleigh is probably one of the best served shopping areas, you know, in the country, with car parks in our town centre. So, you know, people saying that they can't park close to the shops, yes, you can. We put extra parking in for disabled people, etc. And, you know, we can do fantastic things with our town centre, but we need the residents and the businesses to really get involved and help shape that future, because, you know, the 8 of us aren't urban design people, so we're not going to know all the answers. You know, we're here to represent the community, and we can best do that when they fully engage and let us know their views and feelings. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bourne. Councillor Bicknell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this is quite a difficult one, because I'm just sort of seeing on one of the community Facebook pages, one of the young Echo reporters asking what people's views are, because this is being debated tonight. The overwhelming response is from the public is to keep the roads closed. But of course, obviously, we've just heard from Steve and obviously the Town Centre Action Group, which are the businesses. So the businesses, you know, want or are indicating that they want roads open or a halfway house sort of thing, and yet the vast majority of the public want them to stay shut. So it's a very difficult one, and it's obviously something that's going to go on for quite some time. High streets are a changing beast, regardless of the roads being kept closed or being reopened. You know, the high street was changing before we had COVID. You know, it is believed that COVID has probably sped up the repurposing of high streets by about 10 years. But that's a debate for another day. We're here to debate whether or not High Street and Market Street should be kept closed or reopened, and whether to pass this motion to extend the TRO beyond the 21st of April. For me, it's quite a quite simple decision, because there's nothing to lose. That we agree to the motion, and we extend the TRO past the 21st of April up until you know, December. And I say that for a number of reasons, because none of us actually know what the situation is going to be with social distancing on the 21st of April. You know, and we need to be able to react quickly. As Kelly has made very clear, and as we understand, the fact that we pass this motion tonight and the TRO gets put into place doesn't mean to say the actual road has to be closed. It's far easier and quicker for us to pull the TRO and open the roads than it is to actually do it the other way around, because we realise that, you know, we haven't got enough space. The number of cases remain high. And we end up in tiered restrictions, because, you know, all the indications are when we come out of the national lockdown, it's not going to be lift the lid and off we go. It's going to be sort of tiered restrictions anyway. So I think it's sensible and prudent to keep the, you know, to put the TRO in past the 21st of April and to cover ourselves up until December, by which time we are safeguarded by the fact that when we get to, dare I say it, having just skipped completely through spring and summer without even taking a breath, that we're into next autumn and winter, and the winter disease season comes upon us, which, you know, usually consists of flu. We hope dearly and keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't consist of flu and coronavirus or COVID-19. But should the worst happen, or should a strain become resistant to the current vaccines, and we can't adapt quick enough. We have measures in place that as an emergency we can actually close those roads off very quickly, rather than the other way round. So it seems very sensible and very prudent to actually have the TRO in, belt and braces at the end of the day. However, it comes with a caveat, and that caveat is what Steve has said, is what Councillor Bourne has said, is what Callie has said, is that we do need to have the dialogue with the businesses and such like, get the evidence, get the facts, get the footfall, so we know what we're doing, so actually we can justify it at the end of the day. And we can react to the evidence and the facts that we actually get. Once we know what we're playing with, once we have some restrictions lifted, and we know where we're going. So I should be supporting this because it just seems the sensible and prudent thing to do. But it doesn't mean to say that it actually will be bought in, because it's nice and flexible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bicknell. Anyone else who wishes to speak at this stage? Okay, I can't see anyone who does, so I just want to close this section just with a few comments of my own. So I think firstly I would just want to say how much I feel for the town centre businesses, and I think what has been made very plain this evening, both in terms of the statement that we had from Lorraine from the Town Centre Action Group, and also from Steve representing the members of the bid, is obviously, just how difficult life is for town centre businesses at this moment in time. And I can understand them feeling really angry about this situation. I'm really sorry to hear that they feel that they haven't been consulted enough. And I think that is definitely something that we need to rectify. We were very clear at this committee the last time that we discussed this, that it was really important that the bid, who were, the main body that the council consult with where businesses are concerned, we should be engaging with them. And it's clear to me that we haven't done enough of that. I'm sure, absolutely sure, it's not because there's not willingness to do that. And I think also we have to be, I have to be well recognised, I guess, how the pandemic has really put the council staff under an enormous amount of pressure. The bid are under an enormous amount of pressure and trying to do what they're having to do with their staff, obviously clearly affected. And then, of course, we've got the town centre businesses, many of whom have had to close or are operating temporarily, we hope, or who are operating in a really different way. But it is obviously absolutely key that we keep those lines of communication open, and we obviously haven't done enough or gone far enough, and so we have to quite definitely build on that. I endorse the approach that Councillor Bicknell has outlined in terms of, I think in terms of taking the decision tonight. It seems sensible that we do take that decision tonight, put it to the vote, because that in itself just means we have that mechanism in place. It doesn't actually ever have to apply if it's not needed. But I think the points that Steve made about scheduling those regular reviews, I think, yeah, absolutely. And I would want to go as far as saying that, the first meeting that we have after the election, if the extension has gone into force, that we do have a formal review at that stage, and I hope that will help the bid and the town centre businesses to feel that we are taking seriously their concerns, and by sort of making that a very public promise at this sort of stage, that gives warning and notice. And ELAC, I am sure, would be very pleased to hear from those town centre businesses, and if the bid were able to do their own consultation, if they wanted to do that and feed back to us, we'd be very pleased to receive that. And obviously there is the Hampshire County Council consultation that will also be happening in the meantime as well. So there are plenty of opportunities to sort of get those views into us. But I think it is really, really key that I know a lot of people have got confused with this, is just to stress again that what we are not taking the decision today is to say, do we keep our roads closed till December the 15th? Yes or no? That's not the decision. All we are doing is putting a mechanism in place today that would enable us to keep the roads closed if we need that to happen when the current order closes in April, because this committee won't be meeting in April because that's the purdah period before the election, and it wouldn't be appropriate for us to meet during April to make that decision then. Absolutely reassure the businesses. I think what we really have to come together on, whether we are councillors, whether we are council officers, whether we are the bid, the town centre businesses, all of us, I would hope, can unite around the theme of we all have a vested interest in making Eastleigh Town Centre sustainable and a really flourishing and vibrant place where people want to come, be that to do their shopping, to leisure activities, to just come and meet friends and things like that. So all of us, you know, whichever side of the fence we're on, we can actually unite around that. And I just think we obviously quite clearly, we all need to work a lot harder to get to that common aim. Okay, so enough from me. No one else wants to speak. So I'm going to ask Laura if you can explain the voting process tonight, please.
Of course, Chair. Councillors, as you know, we have been experiencing some technical problems, so we are back to the good old-fashioned roll call. So when I call your name, if you could just indicate if you're in support or against. So Councillor Bicknell.
In support.
Councillor Bourne.
In favour.
Councillor Campbell.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Doogie.
For.
Councillor Irish.
For.
Councillor Mann. Councillor Mann? You're on mute, Councillor Mann.
For.
Councillor Tyson Payne.
For.
That's clearly carried, Chair.
Lovely, thank you, Laura. So now moving to the next item on the agenda, which is the community governance review of the unparished area of Eastleigh Borough. So can I remind councillors that you need to be present for the duration of this item? And I'd like to ask Dickon Bright, the Strategic Planning Manager, to present his report, please.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, everybody, councillors. So you have the report before you. The report basically captures the results of a survey of the households of the unparished area and consultation with other stakeholders that we're obliged to do under the terms of the Community Governance Review, which is part of the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act. And you can see the results of the survey and the recommendations that will be going to the administration committee and then from there on to full council. And your comments as local councillors, many of you representing the unparished area of the borough, are very welcome to feed into that process. Your comments will go forward to the administration committee. It's very important that we use those comments and hear from you as representatives of the unparished area. The guidance to how community governance reviews should be carried out specifically reference issues like the identity and interests of the communities that are affected, community cohesion, and the effective and convenient governance that can best help and support those communities. So you're very well placed to provide comments on those sorts of issues. The report sets out a number of reasons for the recommendations, as well as the mathematical or quantitative responses from the consultation, and I should attribute a lot of the work to Nicola Treby, who's the project manager for this piece of work, who played a leading role in making sure that consultation took place in a systematic and a fair way, and was as inclusive of all of our communities as possible. You may also note in the report reference to local government reorganisation, which has been suggested by government for many years, and we're expecting a white paper from government on those issues, which is relevant to the matter before you this evening, in the sense that parish councils are likely to play a significant role in the circumstances of local government changes in this area of Hampshire, were the local government at district or borough council level to be removed and replaced by a larger unitary authority of some sort, whose centre of operations would be a lot more centralised and arguably more remote from the community that we're talking about tonight. That's all I want to say, Chair. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, councillors, do you have any questions for Dickon, please? Councillor Bicknell.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got some question, Dickon, on the areas that are listed in the report, and whether or not you can either agree with me or be more specific. And this is the table where the percentage of respondents have come from. So I'm assuming that Boyerwood and Twyford Road is everything north of the railway up until Albrook Parish. And if that is the case, is there any split on the 33 respondents to where they came from? I'm more interested in how many of those replies came out of the Ruskin Road estate and the Twyford Road area. I'm assuming that Newtown is as what we would all deem as the Newtown Road estate, Archers Road and such like. Possibly Central Eastleigh Town Centre. Is that would that be what we would deem as the political central area and ward? Turn the computer back on. Avery Estate, I think, is probably fairly self-explanatory. Stoneham, I'm guessing, is North Stoneham Park. Lakeside, obviously, I think, again, that's fairly self-explanatory. But South Eastleigh, would that include, again, on political boundaries, the rest of Eastleigh South, not including Velmore, because, of course, it's already parished. So it's basically clarification on what those geographical areas are, please. Are you thinking?
Okay, yes, so Boyerwood and Twyford Road, obviously they're grouped together like that. I haven't got a split of the different areas. We'd have to do some finer detail work on the consultation responses to pick those out. Yes, you're right in your definitions of Eastleigh, the central Eastleigh and southern Eastleigh area. Some people, it's sort of between Derby Road and Chestnut Avenue and the areas immediately south of Chestnut Avenue. For some people, then they live north of Derby Road, but still would describe their area as South Eastleigh. So these are not precise areas. Obviously, these aren't geographies that we defined in the consultation, or people defined very clearly. We had to group them as best we could in a way that made sense. I noticed that Nicola is asking to speak, Chair, so I'm sure she can help clarify this issue.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I just wanted to clarify a bit more on the areas. So a lot of that was actually based on what residents identified for themselves. So in all the question responses, we did look for sort of grouped ideas of where they specifically said they lived, but we do have postcodes because we wanted to clarify that everyone responding was actually within that unparished area. So I'm sure we can do some analysis around sort of plotting whereabouts they are on a graph, but that specifically was what people identified themselves as. So they could be within the terms actually more Eastleigh South, but they identify as Eastleigh Central. So it's to try and get sort of a feeling of where they think they sit within the centre.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to see a plot graph, especially on the Boytwood and Twyford Road one. And can either of you just confirm that Boytwood and Twyford Road is everything north of the railway line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Tyson-Payne has a question.
So, Dickon, thank you for this. When you ran the last survey that ended up with Albrook Parish Council, do you know or can you remember what the percentage response rate was then?
I think I put it in the report.
Did you? Sorry.
The previous turnout figures. It was around 27.7. So paragraph 11 in the report.
I beg your pardon. I missed that.
No, that's fine.
So we've had a higher response rate this time than the last time. Is that correct?
No, the other way around, Councillor.
I thought we were 33% this time.
So 33% is the minority who want a specific parish council just for their neighbourhood, as opposed to the 27.7% figure, which is the turnout figure overall of responses.
Sorry.
That's okay, perfectly fine.
Thank you to clarify that.
Okay, any other questions from councillors? Okay, I can't see any other councillors wanting to ask questions, but we can be a bit more flexible around this. So obviously the purpose of this evening is for us to discuss the report that's in front of us and to make our comments. Those will then go to the admin committee that will be obviously considering this report and making recommendations to full council. So I would like to open it up to councillors now to give their thoughts on what we should do, and I will try and gather some sort of consensus out of what we're all saying. So I would like to start by going to Councillor Clark, because it was Councillor Clark who first raised the issue of the parishing of the non-parish area of Eastleigh at full council. So I'd like him to lead us off this evening if he's happy to do so.
Yeah, sure, that's fine, thank you. So I expressed my reasons through the motion to full council, and those have been repeated and added to by lots of other people. I think it's been noticeable that positive comments and arguments for parishes have dominated this debate since it kicked off at full council. All parties that have been elected to the council in Eastleigh supported the concept of parishing the non-parished area. Even though the Conservatives didn't vote for the motion, they did make clear that they supported the concept of parishing. The reason they didn't support the motion was to do with the wording that was positive about local area committees. So it is important to say that, you know, it's got that unanimous support across everyone that's actually elected to the council. And I think, you know, looking at the responses, it's heartening how positive the responses are towards a town or parish council. You know, you do get question marks over how many people take part in consultations, but this is a free country. There's no requirement to take part in elections, let alone consultations, and you have to work on the responses that you get. I mean, you know, it would be pretty dysfunctional if every time there was a council election with a low turnout, you sort of argued over the legitimacy of the person that's elected. You know, as I say, it's a free country. You have to go on the opinions of people who take part, and you have to recognise that in any of these situations that a mandate is delivered by all those people, particularly when it's as clear cut as this. You know, it is a clear, overwhelming endorsement of the idea of parishing the non-parished area. Only 16% said no to parishing the town. There have been no really well thought out logical arguments from anybody against parishing the town. So I'm very happy to support it. I think there should be a reorganisation order. Personally, I would go for a separate parish for Boytwood and that area. If you look at the breakdown that was just being discussed, you know, central Eastleigh and the town centre participants clearly have a strong identity, and Boytwood clearly has one. And I just think you have the seeds there of some tension if you try and push that whole area into one council. I think that, you know, Boytwood over the last 50 odd years has developed its own identity. It's got its own groups like the Boytwood Partnership. There is the Crestwood Community and Action Group. The St Peter's Church has been active with different community initiatives. Boytwood has developed quite a few initiatives purely for Boytwood, and I think the next stage in that process, really of evolving that community, it would be to get a parish council to help make those things happen. I think you might get quite a lot of disappointment in Boytwood if it were to become part of a larger town council where you've got another strong identity that's very separate from Boytwood in it, but where you're also going to have a lot of other priorities from around the town being pushed to the front. And I think you could quite quickly get a bit of tension within that council and quite a bit of disappointment in Boytwood, where their priorities are having to vie with and potentially be pushed out by priorities for other parts of the town centre. So I think for that reason, it would be better to have two. I think also for the positive reason that all the case we made about localism and more local accountability would be strengthened by having a separate parish council for Boytwood and the surrounding area. One point I would just make about that is that, you know, people can be quite, you know, community identities can be quite fluid, really. And just to illustrate the point, the parish that I used to be a member of and that I was chair of, West End, had a large polling district that was known as Chartwell Green, and it was, you know, it didn't exist before the 1980s. It's been built up since then. It's been known as Townhill Farm and Chartwell Green. You know, at the beginning in the 80s, it probably wouldn't have considered itself part of West End, and people in West End wouldn't have considered that as part of West End, but it made logical sense for it to be part of West End Parish Council, and now you would consider it to be part of West End, albeit, you know, a district, a part of it, you know, an area that has a slightly different identity to the rest of West End. It's quite happy there. So I think that when you look at that breakdown, you've got areas such as Lakeside and Stoneham that would be quite happy, I think, within an Eastleigh Town council. I think Boytwood would be happier separate to that. You know, that's supported further by the fact that Albrook Parish Council have suggested that. I declare that I am chair of Albrook Parish Council, but other Albrook Parish councillors felt that way, and, you know, they are neighbours of Boytwood, so they know the Boyt area well. I think that, you know, I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say, but I'm not going to repeat all the points I made at full council in favour of parishing. I'll just leave it today at those comments on the report and on in my opinion, the best solution, which is to have a separate parish council for Boyetwood.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Clark. So that was obviously very clear support for going ahead with parishing, and Councillor Clark there supporting the idea of two separate parishes, one centred around Boyetwood and then the other being around the town centre to encompass the remaining parts of the town that aren't currently parished. Other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Irish, please.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'm just trying to get my head around these boundaries. We're talking about Boyetwood becoming one parish council, and I presume that would be everything in Ruskin Road area and Shakespeare Road. So what do we do about the other side of Twyford Road, like from Rosebery Crescent and all those roads off of there? Will they be in the Boyetwood parish, or will they be in the Eastleigh parish? And then again, would Dutton Lane and Barton Road be in the Eastleigh parish? And I'm just a bit confused over which roads are going to be in which, really. Thank you.
Well, I don't think that tonight we have to get down to the complete minutiae of all the details, because I think the report suggests that there will be a sort of working group that is set up to go through all the details of this. But Councillor Irish, if you have a particular view that you would like to express on, you know, whether it should fall within one parish or the other, then, you know, this is an ideal time for you to sort of share your views with us.
No, Chair, I haven't really got a view on it. I just wondered how it was going to be worked out, really. I've got no particular. And when someone comes up with a scheme that says that most of Twyford Road is going to be in Boyetwood, I'll be quite happy with that. In fact, I'm happy to go along with whatever boundaries drawn, but I was just curious to know where this large area was going to be going to. That was all.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Irish. Councillor Tyson-Payne.
Hi, so I agree. I would prefer two parishes. I think Councillor Clark makes the case well that they do have distinctly different, well, actually characteristics as much as identities. I think they're quite different. As to boundaries, I realise this is much further down the road. Personally, I would suggest that the Alexander Square, Mill Street, Dutton Lane and Barton would be in the town centre rather than in Boyetwood, but you know we're a long way from that, but I am supportive of two parishes. I think it would work much better. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson-Payne. Councillor Mann.
What makes you think that a small area like Boyetwood can be split into two parish councils and the rest of Eastleigh into one, and even saying Stoneham would like to be part of Eastleigh when there's only a third of the population there? In the next 2 years, there's going to be about 3,000–4,000 people living there. Wouldn't they want their own parish council? And what about Avery Estate? Why would they want to be with Central Eastleigh or Lakeside? Don't they have their own identity? Why not have one parish council for Oldbrook and all the way from the railway lines, that side, one parish council? And all right, if we just want to have just two parish councils in Eastleigh, then the rest. Or just have the Central Eastleigh as parish council, and maybe Avery and Stoneham. The third parish council. Why is it that you are so stuck on splitting Boyetwood into two parishes?
Sorry, can I respond to that? I take it as directed at me. Okay, this whole thing has got to be a locally driven initiative. I'm not suggesting that we split Boyetwood into two parishes at all. There is very clear from Albrook a sense that Albrook is its own parish, and you know it has been historically, and the boundaries that Albrook currently has is the historic Albrook boundary. So I'm not myself determined to break Albrook up from Boyetwood. It is something that the Albrook community want and the Albrook parish councillors have asked for. I mean, you know, if this committee wants to insist that Albrook join with Boyetwood into a new parish council, then I guarantee there's going to be a lot of backlash from that. In terms of having a separate parish council for Boyetwood, again, it's not something that I am trying to impose here. It's just something that I have taken from the residents, having represented Boyetwood. I know from the Boyetwood Partnership, I know from Wendy, who runs the charity events at Boyetwood Shopping Centre. I know from the CCIA, from the activists that have been involved in the events at St Peter's Church, that they've got a lot of objectives, for example, community building for Boyetwood. And I think that it would be best for Boyetwood to have its own parish council for that reason. And that is really borne out by this consultation, where a high number of people from that area have said that they would like a parish council for their own patch. You know, you've mentioned the Avery estate. I don't represent the Avery estate. You know, you've mentioned these other areas, but they didn't come back on this consultation and say that they wanted their own parish councils. You know, I would say that these things can be fluid, and over time parish councils do change their boundaries. So part of Bursledon parish, I think, recently went into Hedge End. You know, over time, you know, we might find as Stoneham grows that, you know, things might be different in 20 years. But I think at this moment, going for a new parish council, I think what the community would want is a parish council for Boyetwood, a parish council for the town centre. And, you know, Albrook is its own separate community and it's established its parish council. You know, I don't think it would be democratic, and it wouldn't be in the spirit of localism for us to force Albrook to join with Boyetwood.
OK, thank you very much for that, Councillor Clark. We're now going to go to Councillor Bicknell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to go over all the bits about parish and that, as Councillor Clark said, we did that at a full council. So I shall just cut to the chase and talk about the document that's in front of us. I agree with Darshan. I don't agree with splitting up the community of Eastleigh. We've already done that. I mean, Albrook and Belmore, that's all done and dusted. OK, so I do not believe splitting up the non-parished area into two. It's a significant minority of Boyetwood residents that potentially want their own parish, and that is why specifically that I've asked to find out where those residents in the Boyetwood and Twyford Road area came from, because we know that Bosville is has very different characteristics than Launceston, which has very different characteristics to to Broadlands, which have very, very different characteristics to Ruskin Road, Quadrangle, Bewley, Selborne and Mottisfont. My gut feel is that most of the 33%, the significant minority in that that want their own parish, are happy to be proven wrong when the figures are plotted in postcode, actually come from the Boyetwood, Bosville, Launceston chunk. And I believe, but happy to be proven wrong, that there be a significant less number that come from Ruskin Road, Twyford Road. I certainly don't agree with taking out Twyford Road and everything east of Twyford Road and putting it in the town centre. I don't understand the logic and understand why those residents would be part of the town centre, and yet Ruskin Road and everything west from there would actually be its own separate parish. And that. I also don't agree that I certainly don't agree that Lakeside and Stone would be happy to be part of a town council. I don't understand the logic in that at all. Well, they would be, but the implication is that they don't want to be anything else, and that. So anyway, so I'm in favour of an overall parish, because we have some very large parishes, Chandler's Ford, Hedge End, and that, and even within some of the smaller parishes, such as Old Netley and such like, you have different communities within your parish. Chandler's Ford has Hiltonbury, which is a very different community to Belmore. You know, Hedge End Town Council, there's numerous different communities and that within the Hedge End Town Council. So, you know, localism, well, yeah, how far you could break it down, we could have about 4 parishes at this rate, and that if you take it down. But localism at the parish level, these communities are still represented in a large parish council. So I don't see the necessity to be breaking up what is a you know, a whole town council community, because there's lots and lots of different communities in all parish councils, and that. Also, it's also a question on some sort of factual sort of stuff as well. You have economies of scale for a start. A large parish, it's much easier to you know, raise funds in a large parish to do things. You have economy of scale. You'd only have to have 1 parish clerk rather than 2, so there's a saving there for the residents. It's saying also the same thing as well, is that the rest of the non-parish area, everybody would be paying the same. So you wouldn't have you know, within the community that we have within the non-parish area, you wouldn't have different areas paying different amounts. Everyone would be paying the same because they'd be the same, you know, the same town council preset, and that. So, you know, there's a number of reasons, you know, why I'm in favour of a single town council, and not in favour of splitting the town, you know, our community, our non-parish area, to break off. What would be the sensible thing to do would be everything north of the railway if we have 2. Anything else, it just gets messy and unworkable and such like. But yeah, so I'd be in favour of the single parish, and probably come in later as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so various points raised there. I think we just need to sort of point out that obviously currently within Eastleigh, people in Belmore would pay a different council tax compared to people in Albrook, compared to people in the non-parish area. So whether we had 1 parish council or 2, what the levels of council tax would be in those areas would obviously depend on what services the parish council was deciding to provide for the residents. That's obviously part of the reason of wanting to have a parish council in the first place. So I just need to go back to my list. I think Councillor Tyson Payne was keen to come in, and then we're going to go to Councillor Bourne.
No, I don't have anything more to say, because actually we're not trying, it was confusion, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So we'll now go to Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. So we've heard arguments for 2 parishes, arguments for 1 parishes, and at the moment I'd like to make the argument for no parish. 872 responses is very, very disappointing. It doesn't feel like a big enough mandate to make such a big change, although I do take Councillor Clark's argument that, you know, it was a survey and people were free to take part, and so we know we are using the results of that survey. But out of 26,000 residents, it is a very, very poor turnout. So there is not a huge strength of feeling. When we're talking percentages now, we're talking percentages of 872 people out of 26,000 people. Now, I'm not against parish councils, not at all, but I do appreciate that it takes time to set up parish councils. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We will need time, money and resources which are currently deployed on important things getting us through a pandemic. To start thinking about setting up parish councils at this moment in time, even in 6 months' time, I still think the pandemic will be, you know, here and taking up council resources. That this is not the time to be doing this. Whilst there are special expenses that will get moved to parishes, it won't cover all the costs. There'll be set-up costs, and there'll be salaries of parish clerks and parish teams that aren't being paid now, because I don't think we'd replace any of the borough council staff, you know, move them off to parish councils, because the borough council staff are thin anyway. So I'm not against parish councils, but I'm against us even thinking about it in the middle of a pandemic, when this will take time, resource and money that really should be used elsewhere. So sorry about the consensus, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to go to back to Councillor Clark, I believe.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, I'm just going back to this report. You know, the community of Boyetwood was divided up there, and we've got to be careful not to be divisive. I think what I'm doing is I'm triangulating. I'm taking this evidence from this report, which shows, Councillor Bickham called it a significant minority, but it shows a lot of people who responded to this wanted a separate parish for Boyetwood. And then I'm comparing that, you know, I'm putting it alongside other evidence that I've built up as the councillor for Boyetwood over the last few years, which also tells me the residents of Boyetwood would want their own parish council. So I'm thinking about the people who have been involved in the charitable events over the years, people who have been involved in St. Peter's Church, people who have been involved with the Community Crestwood in Action Group, people who have been involved in the Boyetwood Partnership, who see what is available to other areas in terms of parish councils and would like it for Boyetwood. Now, if we want localism, we need to respond to that and make sure that the parish councils are small enough units to respond to what people actually want in their local area. You know, I think the arguments for economies of scale are perfectly logical, but if you took those to their logical conclusion, you wouldn't even have parish councils. Okay, if you would have one clerk for a larger area purely on a financial basis, then, you know, the area might get so large you'd think, well, it's not really worth having parish councils. You know, I do think that there is a case for economies of scale, and that case, you know, we could look at the town council, potentially Boyetwood and Albrook Parish Council coming together and maybe cooperating so that they can get economies of scale when they're entering contracts or whatever. But I don't think that economies of scale is an argument for having just one council in the non-parished area. In terms of the argument that you want everyone in the town to pay the same tax, this again sort of goes against the concept of parish councils, because the idea is that you get as close to people's, you know, wants and needs in their community as possible. So if a certain community wants to pay more because they want something in their area that's important to them, they should be allowed to. That is the beauty of parish councils, and we don't really want to lose the arguments for them by producing something that is too big. And, you know, I suppose I am in a unique position in that I've been on Hedge End Town Council and I represented Grange Park East on Hedge End Town Council for 4 years. And I can say that, yeah, having represented Boyetwood as well, there's nowhere in Hedge End that would consider itself, you know, separate from the rest of Hedge End in the way that I think Boyetwood sees itself as a distinct community within ELAC. everyone in Hedge End would be very clear that they live in Hedge End. In my experience, Hedge End train station is in Grange Park. You know, you wouldn't go to any part of Hedge End and find people that say they don't really live in Hedge End. But I think that, you know, in Boyett Wood, people that moved there when the, you know, it was initially developed, it, you know, moved to Boyett Wood. And as I say, there have also been some clear objectives from the community over a number of years. And I think that, you know, people expect, if there is a parish council, that parish council will deliver on those objectives, like a community building, like regular community events, so like that quite quickly. You know, I do speak to residents who complain that a lot goes on in the town centre, for example, the Christmas lights, but Boyett Wood doesn't get much support at all. So if you were going to go for one town council, you would not deal with that problem. But if you go for a town council and a Boyett Wood parish council, you would deal with that sort of problem. So, you know, I still stick with my view that we should have a separate parish council for Boyett Wood. Won't get into the ins and outs of what particular streets should be in Boyett Wood at this stage. I'll just go back to my earlier point. I think, you know, those areas that have shown themselves to have a less strong feeling, you know, identity feeling in this report will probably be more flexible over where they, which council they go into.
You're muted, Chair.
It was bound to happen one of these times. Sorry about that. So we have Councillor Irish who wishes to speak, and then we're going to go to Councillor Doogie.
Thank you, Chair. When this first came up, I think it was 2008, I'm not quite sure, it's a long time ago, but I was on ELAC then. When it first came up, I must admit I was one of the people who wasn't at all in favour of parish councils, and of course that time we didn't have a parish council, but of course things have changed since then, because I'm actually now a member of a parish council, and I think that parish council does reasonably good work, and it does benefit the residents of the area. But I'm also very, very concerned about the future of local government, and if we get swallowed up in some massive great unitary authority in this area, we are going to lose a lot of our power. And I think the only way we're going to try and keep anything at all is to have a town council or parish council, whatever, and be parish. So I think that's the way forward, really, and I think that's the way we should go. I'm a little bit torn over this issue of, is it one or is it two parish councils? I'm tending to be siding now with Councillor Bicknell over the fact that I think we ought to be having the one, because we're going to have to. I mean, we've got part of Boyett Wood in Albrook now, haven't we? As I understand it. So,
sorry, if I could just come in there. We've had quite a big argument about that, and residents in Albrook were consulted over that. And it was clear that residents in the Albrook parish consider themselves Albrook.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I just remind councillors, please, to use the meeting chat if they wish to speak, and I will invite them in, please. Councillor Irish, sorry, would you like to continue?
I haven't quite finished, Chair. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I think we're talking about now part of Boyett Wood and a bit of North Ward, and when we're talking about a bit of Twyford Road, and I think it's all going to get pretty messy, really, and it's going to be far too small. So I am inclined to agree with Councillor Bicknell that we ought to be sticking to just the one parish council. So then we've got Albrook and North Boyett, we've got Chandler's Ford, and we've got Eastleigh with all the rest in. And I'm beginning to come to the view that that's the way we should be going forward, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Irish. So I'm now going to go to Councillor Doogie before going back to Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Chair. I guess for me, from my opinion, is that I am very on the fence on this. Firstly, because a bit like Councillor Bourne, I don't think right now we need another tier of local government in place. Purely because at the minute there's massive distrust within public politicians, and I don't think the public would probably like to have another layer where there's not a mistrust in terms of them knowing what they actually do. But I think as well, it's also important to have that, because at the minute as it is, we don't seem to be providing the service we need to be doing it adequately. So our parish council will be able to do that if we're to go ahead with that. Now, I've heard all the arguments today, tonight about having 2 or 1. I think we need to look at this very carefully. Yes, it may be a small minority within the report that asks for 2 different parishes, but I think we need to be careful when we come to that, because if we do decide against one or the other, we will be upsetting people. So it's about balancing the act and making sure that if we establish this council, there's value for money for the residents, whether it's 2 or 1, but also residents happy about the outcome. Because the last thing we want to do is to have communities within one parish council having feel like that they've been done wrong by not establishing a parish for themselves or doing it as a big one. So we need to be able to take that decision likely within the balance that we can, but also to make sure that we can successfully argue that we will be delivering value for money by establishing these parishes or this parish for the residents. So I think that's key to making sure that this parish or 2 parishes are going to be successful. But I understand the heated argument around whether we need 2 parishes or not. I think ultimately we need to look at the numbers, whether minority or not. It's there, but we need to do within good heart and good logical approach to making sure that value for money is delivered.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Doogie. So just before I go to Councillor Clark, just to kind of draw some consensus here, if that's at all possible. So we've obviously had one strong speech from Councillor Bourne, who didn't think we should be parishing. Councillor Doogie has concerns, but wasn't feeling it as strongly as Councillor Bourne was. The other councillors who have spoken thus far are all in support of the parishing, and the question is more around, should it be 1 or should it be 2? And as we stand at the moment, we have Councillor Irish, Councillor Bicknell and Councillor Mann all believing it would be better for it to be 1. And we have Councillors Clark and Councillor Tyson Payne believing it should be 2. And Councillor Doogie on that question was, he didn't express a preference one way or the other, but he just wanted to make sure that we were doing the best thing for local residents. So I'm going to go to Councillor Clark and then to Councillor Bicknell. If we can just draw out new points of view, please, if at all possible, to move the debate on a bit. Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, I think we just need to be clear on the communities we're talking about, because earlier on, it was suggested by Councillor Mann that we'd be dividing Boyett Wood up in 2 by having Albrook Parish Council and Boyett Wood Parish Council. They are 2 separate communities, and that's not a view that I've imposed. That's the view from those people that live in Albrook and Boyett Wood. We had a review recently because a lot of residents and a lot of Albrook Parish councillors complained that it wasn't Albrook and North Boyett, the parish was Albrook, and it therefore changed its name back to Albrook. And again, I'm a believer in localism. That's what people wanted. That's what it's called. So I think we need to be careful that we don't say that Boyett Wood's already been split up, or that Boyett Wood and Albrook are one community, because they're not. So I reiterate that I think for localism to really work, you need to respond to what the community want. I think the community do want a separate parish council in Boyett Wood. And to pick up on the point about I think Councillor Doogie said about people not really trusting politicians, not really trusting councillors at the moment, and therefore being slightly suspicious about new layers. Actually, local parish councils tend to be the layer that people are quite supportive of. People tend to get to know their parish councillors, they get to know the staff of the parish councils, and by nature, people can see the value of what they're doing on their doorstep. When they pay into the higher tier authorities, they might not see on a regular basis where that money's going, but when they pay into their parish council, they can see the parish council staff in the parish council uniform looking after their open spaces, you know, opening up their community buildings, etc. So I would actually say that local parish councils tend to play a part in building trust between people and politicians rather than rather than breaking down that trust. And I think that, you know, parish councils tend to be seen as less political, and you know, I think for that nature they tend to take the heat out of some of the arguments, you know, although if you look at the example that was viral the other day, and if you look at perhaps this example, you might think parish councils wind people up. Overall, they tend to take the heat out of arguments by being less political.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Clark. So we're now going to go to Councillor Bicknell again, please.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not changing my mind on whether it's one or two parishes. I'm more in favour of a single parish. And it's just looking at some of the figures. I mean, the actual number of people that wanted a neighbourhood for just their own area was half of those that actually wanted a single parish, and then when you look at the actual figures, you know, there's something ridiculous like 0.4 of the population of Boyett Wood and Twyford Road have actually sent in a reply to the fact that they want to be their own parish, but we're still unclear as to where that parish boundary would be, for things I said earlier about the Boswell, Launceston, Broadlands division, and then the other community in Ruskin Road and Twyford Road. So, you know, the report itself actually has the word significant minority, and you're right, we shouldn't ignore a significant minority, but a minority nonetheless. At the end of the day, you know, where do you draw the line? You know, do you listen to a 10% significant minority, or what? And that, so but you know, yeah, so I'm, you know, agree with Darshan and on the one parish and Wayne, because there's another danger here, that if we could end up making a parish that's too small, and the Boyett Wood area, or the Boyett Wood and Twyford Road area has few amenity spaces. You've got Lawn Road, obviously as a playground if Ruskin Road stays in. They've got one, I'm not sure, I don't know where all the allotments are in Eastleigh North. I know there's one off of St Catherine's Road. Then there's got to be one somewhere in Broadlands, Launceston and Bosville, but I don't know where it is. So possibly two allotments. But of course the one in St Catherine's Road is in Ruskin Road Estate. You know, so they got very little scope as a Boyett Wood parish to actually do anything much. We talk about community building, but there's potentially few places they could actually build one, because all the public open space in those areas, especially around Broadlands, is public open space. You wouldn't be able to put a community building on it anyway, and that. So I just feel that they could be sorely disappointed, the residents of Boyett Wood, in the fact that actually to achieve anything of any stature, you know, substantial, they would have to increase their precepts so high, which they may choose to do or may not, and that's why I come back to the economies of scale. At the end of the day, a town council is one town council is made up of lots of parish councillors from lots of different communities within the parish. So Boyett Wood and Twyford Road parish councillors would be part of the council, just the same as Central Eastleigh and Town Centre councillors would be part of the council, just the same as that Stoneham would be represented, and the Avery Estate, and all these other different communities that we have within the non-parished area. And it's actually up to the parish councillors to represent their area, just as Councillor Bourne and I do for Velmore in the Chandler's Ford parish, to put their case forward. similar to how we operate in the local area committee, with North councillors and South councillors and Central councillors arguing their point. And generally, as a local area committee, we do best, we do what is best for the community as a whole, as a priority. Same principle for a parish council. That's further reasons why I would prefer, I believe that, or my preference, sorry, is for one parish rather than two. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So before I sort of bring this to a close, I just want to put my own point of view as well. So I would be a supporter of having at least one, but if not one, two parish councils, for the reasons that I can't remember now who said it, but I am concerned about the noises that the government, central government, have made about their desire to have large unitary authorities. And I'm really concerned, as myself being a resident of central Eastleigh, that could potentially mean that you know, we have no say what happens locally here in the town, and that decisions would be made by a group of people who don't actually live in Eastleigh. So I feel very nervous about that. So localism is something that this council has a very good record on. Obviously, we are very quite unique in our approach with local area committees, and so I think adopting a parish for the non-parish area is just taking that next step further. So that's a good thing to do. I do understand where Councillor Bourne is coming from in terms of his concerns about the costs involved, but I think that we have to be realistic about what we're talking about here. So over the next year, then the costs really, it's more about sort of having this working group and you know, putting together the plan for how this could work. The costs don't really start to apply until the parish council is obviously set up, and then obviously the whole purpose at that point is you would expect to see that special expenses will come down because the borough council is no longer providing those services, and then it would be up to the parish council itself to obviously set its precept, and that would be according to the services that, you know, the parish council is choosing to provide. The one parish, two parish, I guess I don't have a huge strong feeling in sort of either direction. But bearing in mind what I started with about localism, I kind of feel slightly uncomfortable about the fact that we do have a group of people. I accept everything that everyone has said about the numbers of people who returned the survey, but for those that did return it, you know, there was a preference from a significant minority of people, you know, and the people in Boytwood did seem to indicate that they wanted a parish. So I would feel that opinion having been expressed, and me being somebody who really believes in sort of local democracy as being incredibly important, then I kind of feel that my preference would be for two. So I can see that Councillor Clark wants to speak again, and I will come to him in a minute to just clarify. I guess what I feel it might be good for us to do is to try and sort of move this on, because ideally we need to come up with a sort of a clear sort of guidance for admin committee as to what we feel is the best thing to do. And at the moment, I think it's clear that the majority of us are in support of some kind of parishing. And the critical question is, do we support the recommendation for one parish, or do we support a recommendation for two? So I'm thinking it would be quite good to go towards a vote on at least one of those approaches. But before I do that, I just want to go back to Councillor Clark, as I say, he was the person who first kicked all of this off. Councillor Clark, do you have anything new that you want to add?
I would just make the point that, you know, this council's supposed to be governed by localism. You know, we have the local area committee system, so local areas make all the important decisions in their area, and we do try and bring that down to, you know, the lowest manageable level. And what you've got here is you've got the two councillors for Boytwood who have spent the years attending meetings of Boytwood community groups and talking to community activists in Boytwood, wanting a parish council for Boytwood, and being told by councillors from other areas that it's not possible. And I just think that goes against the spirit of Eastleigh Borough Council, and it goes against localism. So I think that, you know, we've expressed the views of people Boytwood quite strongly. I think that those views are supported by what's come back in the consultation, and that there should be a separate parish for Boytwood, although, as I think was agreed earlier, even though some people have got into it, we're not going to agree the specific boundaries with every single road tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it would be a good idea just to give some, as I say, some clearer guidance to admin. So I think we have established, as I say, that the majority of us are in favour of parishing, and we just need to decide whether we're recommending 1 or 2. So I would like to, I might need some guidance from officers if we need to do this in a particular way, but I think it would be quite good to go to a vote on this, because I can see we could be here for quite some time with just councillors batting the same sort of ideas backwards and forwards, and it's quite clear that particular councillors have particular sort of strong views on this in a particular camp. So Councillor Bicknell, I've seen that you have indicated you want to speak again. Is it something new?
Yes, well, yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. I mean, if we are talking about localism, which I fully accept, then actually potentially we need another recommendation, because we are having a debate where we're taking into account the residents of Boytwood and Twyford Road, and as you know, taking words from the report, the significant minority, which has been picked up by a number that we should be representing, and that have you quite correctly. But nobody is talking about the significant minority that wants its own parish in central Eastleigh in the town centre. So by the very fact that we are talking about localism, we are talking, we've had talks about, I say, Boytwood and its own separate, and all of us and none of us have mentioned about the significant minority in central Eastleigh that on a similar percentage want their own parish. So you could actually be, based on what everyone is saying about localism, actually, if you're going to take that, then actually we should be having a conversation on 3 parishes.
So are you proposing that that's what we do, Councillor Bicknell?
I'm just putting it out there as part of the debate, because it has been mentioned a number of times about localism and people debating the points. And obviously I've been debating from a different position because I'm in favour of a single parish. But a number of people have mentioned localism, but they've missed that completely. So it's localism where I am, rather than looking at the bigger picture, all of the non-parished area, because central Eastleigh and the town centre has been completely missed as a significant minority along the same lines as Boytwood and Twyford Road at the end of the day. So I just throw that out there whilst everyone is talking about localism and having a debate between 1 parish and 2 parishes, because the parish is fair on localism, but the one is not. So that's why I throw it in, Chair. Thank you.
OK, thank you very much for that, Councillor Bicknell. So we're now going to go over to Councillor Bourne, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to move things on, I would propose that we vote on 0, 1, 2, 3 and see where we land. At least then we've got a vote and we know where we stand. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So Councillor Bourne's proposing we go to a vote now on 0, 1, 2 or 3. Do we have a seconder for that idea? There we go, Councillor Irish. So Laura, do you want to help me how you want to do this?
Chair, it's not a formal vote. However, given that we have a very split view from the debate, I think it would be really difficult for us to take it as an unmute to agree, because it will be really difficult to take views from that on that basis. So on that basis, I think it would be easier for me just to read the names 4 times. I know it gets repetitive, but I think it's just the clearest way for us to get a majority view on each recommendation.
I wonder if Councillor Bicknell was maybe going to suggest that you read people's names and they just say
or
0,
they could say
1,
just 1, 2, 3 or 4. That's fine.
Yeah.
Not 4. I didn't mean 4.
No,
1, 0, 1, 2 or 3. I missed the 0. But I do think Councillor Mann has indicated to speak after Councillor Bourne, if you want to do that before we go to a vote, Chair.
All I was going to say was that I have already mentioned it, even when we had the meeting about a week ago, that we should either have just 1 or 3, because Stonham's going to be a different community than the Central Eastleigh and all that. Central Eastleigh should be separate if we're going to separate the area. You know, because just now it was mentioned that nobody's mentioned that, but I've mentioned it 3 or 4 times, but nobody's taken any notice.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Darshett and Mann. Okay, so before we go to the vote, we've got Councillor Doogie who wishes to come back in, and then we're going to go to the vote.
So, Chair, it was just a quick advice on how the vote's going to take place. So, so once Laura says our name, are we saying 1 if we want 1, or 2 if we want 2, or 3 if we want 3? Just clarify on that.
Yes, you're going to either say 0 if you don't believe, if you think there shouldn't be any parishing, you'll say 0. If you think there should be 1, you'll say 1. If you think there should be 2, 2, and similarly 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to go to the vote, but I can see Councillor Clark wants to come in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing if Southwold councillors or other councillors think that, you know, there should be a separate parish for another area, then, you know, they can make that case. I'm just speaking up for Eastleigh North, and I feel that the residents there would be happy with a Boyett Wood Parish Council with Albrook. Clearly, there's some part of Eastleigh North that there's still question over in terms of where they go, but I hope that we can, you know, talk to those parts of the community and come up with a solution they're happy with. But I do think that for the residents I represent, a Boyett Wood Parish Council is important.
Okay, right, we're going to go to the vote, please. So Laura, can you call out the councillors' names, please?
Of course, Chair. Councillor Bicknell.
1.
Councillor Bourne.
0.
Councillor Campbell.
2.
Councillor Clark.
2.
Councillor Doogie.
2.
Councillor Irish.
1.
Councillor Mann.
1.
Councillor Tyson Payne.
2.
Chair, that's 4 councillors for 2 parishes, 3 for 1 parish and 1 for 0 parishes.
Okay, thank you. So we've established marginally that we think 2 parishes would be better than 1, and most of the debate was occupied around the Boyett Wood, and then the centre of town, and everything that was currently non-parished would form the other, obviously more larger parish council. I think the final thing that it would be sort of quite good is if we could give to admin, and not wanting to prolong this debate too long, but it would be good if we could give the admin committee, if we are to have 2 parish councils and 1 being for Boyett Wood, it would be good if we could give some indication as to what we believe would be the best boundary. And from what I have picked up so far is that there is one group that seemed to feel it would be good to go north of the railway line, but when it got to Twyford Road they would kind of halt at that point, and the elements that would be to the east of that would then go into the more central block. And then we have others who have said, well, if you are going to have a Boyett Wood one, then they believe it should be everything to the north of the railway line. So can I just invite councillors to just express an opinion on that last sort of point, please? And can I please ask that we don't go back over the territory that we've already covered, we just focus on the sort of boundary issue, please. And to kick us off is Councillor Bicknell.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just simply say and repeat something I said earlier, because it's been going on a while now. Until we get that graph of the postcodes and to actually plot where those 33 people in that great swathe from Bosville and Launceston right the way across to Twyford Road and beyond into Surbiton Crescent, Surbiton Close and what have you, and Surbiton Road, then I don't think we can make a decision. Because even though it's only 33 dots, I think we actually need the facts and the evidence rather than the, start talking about is everything, as you're going towards, going out of the borough, is everything on the right going to be in the town centre and everything on the left is going to be lumped in with Ruskin Road and Broadlands and Launceston and Bosville and such like. Because I think there's a debate about the whole Ruskin Road, Twyford Road estate, to simply say that Alexander Square, Ashton Gardens, Surbiton, Victoria, Albert, and and Rosebery Crescent and what have you, they'd be better suited in the town centre. No, I don't think we can make that decision. So I think before we can make the decision, we need to see that plotted graph, because that will give you where the spread is, and we'll be better informed. If we're making a decision now on the boundaries, I think we're just plucking, it's pie in the sky at the end of the day. So that's my view on that. I need to see that graph to be able to make an educated or semi-educated decision.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Bicknell. Sorry, I just need to see who. I think Councillor Tyson Payne was next, and then we're going to go to Councillor Clark. So, Councillor Tyson Payne.
So if I've read this correctly, and maybe I haven't, we're not here to make a decision about where those boundaries are. We're putting this to the admin committee and they will make the decision about those boundaries. I understood that's how the admin committee worked. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm not going to select a preference. I think there's a lot more information needed to be able to make a preference. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify on that point, I think the admin committee would like us to express what ELAC's preference would be. And obviously, if we're talking about Boyett Wood, then we would look to be guided initially by what the Eastleigh North councillors felt would be the best, because obviously it is your ward area. So okay, so we're going to go to Councillor Clark now, please.
Yeah, it's difficult to be exact about the boundaries because, especially feelings seem to be running quite high about it tonight. But I think it's important to recognise that it can be quite fluid at the edges, and they can change over time. Parish boundaries can change over time with areas coming in and out of parishes. I generally think that because of areas like Rosebery and Consort and everywhere and that patch and Alexander Square, because of their closeness to the rest of to Boyett Wood, to Ruskin Road and to the Boyett Wood shops, etc. I would actually argue bringing as much of that as possible into a Boyett Wood Parish Council. You know, because if you talk to people in Rosebery, Consort, etc., their shops that they walk to are in Boyett Wood. You know, the school that their children go to is in Boyett Wood. So I think the strongest case could be made for those areas being brought into a Boyett Wood Parish Council. I think the case for them to go into the town centre is weaker. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Irish.
Yes, Chair, it is difficult to make this decision without having seen where all these people are from, but I do take Councillor Clark's point that, you know, that area of to the east of Twyford Road has really got more of a connection with Boyett Wood and Shakespeare Road in that area, and I think it would be a little bit silly to take them away from that. So I think without having seen where it's all from, we should really keep that in that area. And that covers up the rest of the North Ward, apart from Dutton Lane and Barton Road, which would be sensible back into the town centre as it always used to be. So I think that could be the answer.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this point? So as it is, okay, so as I'm just seeing that Councillor Clark is agreeing with Councillor Irish.
Yeah, I agree with Wayne on the Dutton Lane and Barton point. I do agree with him on that. I think it's difficult to make a case for that going into Boyett Wood Parish, even though it's in the North Borough. So thanks for that, Wayne. Okay, so there has been not as much strong preference expressed on this. So Councillor Tyson Payne isn't wanting to make a determination either way. Councillor Bicknell would like more information before making a decision, and Councillor Irish and Councillor Clark both feel that it would be good to do the north of the railway line, including the right of Twyford Road, and the only areas that wouldn't be taken into the Boyett Wood Parish would be the Dutton Lane and Barton Lane. That's the only sort of preferences we have at this moment in time. So I'm not sure how much guidance that will be for the admin committee, but Councillor Clark, you are on the admin committee, so and you wish to speak. Yeah, I just wondered, because Wayne's obviously got the most experience out of everyone on the committee in this area. In Selborne, and I know that Selborne was part of Central Ward for a while, there was quite an old Boyett Wood notice board up in Selborne. I noticed that when I first got elected, and it looked like it had been there for quite a few years. So at one point or another, you know, Selborne was clearly considered Boyett Wood. Do you know when those notice boards were put up, Wayne?
Councillor Irish?
Yeah, Mottisfont, Selborne and Bewley originally were in the North Ward, and we had a boundary change in, well, I can't remember which year, and that then became part of Central, and now of course it's gone back to North. So yeah, they were originally, they started off in Boyett Wood, went into Central, and now they're back in Boyett Wood. So yeah,
thanks, mate.
Probably where that came from.
Yeah, so that would mean that it would make logical sense for that area to be in a Boyett Wood Parish Council, if anyone was questioning it.
Okay, I think Councillor Bicknell indicated it may be that the system was just slow. Or no, Councillor Bicknell wanted to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, actually, I just wanted to, while I had the opportunity, and before before you started closing, sunning up and taking votes and what have you, I just wanted to say that I think this has been a really good debate. I mean, I've got absolutely no idea how many people are watching this that we can't see because they're not in the virtual room. But there'll obviously be an awful lot said about, afterwards and that about the parish and what have you. But there's one thing that people cannot say if they're watching this, is that we have not discussed this properly and debated it properly and taken a lot of people's different views and that, because we've looked at this from all angles, different angles and everything, and I think it's been a really good debate it just has, and it's been thoroughly debated, and nobody can accuse us of not thoroughly debating it at the end of the day. And I say that to anyone who may be watching that is not in the virtual room with us, but is sat at home probably on a much more comfortable sofa with a glass of wine or a pint of beer than we're sat here. So as I say, I just think it's been a really good debate, and well done for everyone participating and taking it on, from all angles. So well done everyone. Thank you for your contributions.
Okay, thank you for that positive contribution there, Councillor Bicknell. So you are right, I am moving us towards the voting stage, but I see that Councillor Doogie would like to speak. So Councillor Doogie.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I was actually just gonna say I agree with Paul and Councillor Bicknell on there. In the weeks where we've seen local government in terms of Zoom meetings sort of fall to a bit of a low. I'm glad that Laura hadn't had to kick anybody out by being told she had no authority. So it's good to see that we're actually involved in the debate, and as you say, there's passion here. So we need to keep that going and show residents that we actually are here for them, and we're not just here for our own back or for our own parties. We're here to represent them and make those decisions on their behalf. And if they are watching, they need to get involved, and there's ways to get involved and find out details. Contact us, and don't be afraid to get close to your councillors, because again, as I said, we are here for you.
Thank you. Very good points well made there, Councillor Doogie. So at this stage, how would we feel? I feel that I would like to take this to a vote. The obvious thing that sort of the option that sort of springs is the one that says that the Boytwood parish would be north of the railway line and would include the area to the right of Twyford Road, but excluding, as we've said, Dutton Lane and Barton. So I'm proposing that that's what we vote on. Can I have someone to second that? Thank you, Councillor Irish. So can we have Laura, do you want us to do it individually? Can we all open our mics?
I think, Chair, as it is just that one proposal, I think you can all just unmute to agree.
Okay, can I please ask you to signal your agreement with us having that as the boundary for a Boytwood parish?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay, that sounds to me as though that was carried. Is there anybody who wants to express an alternative view to that, just to be fair?
I'll abstain, Chair.
Okay, so an abstention, but other than that, that was carried. Laura, are you happy with that?
Absolutely, Chair.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. The date of the next meeting is Monday, the 22nd of March, 2021 at 7 p.m. So thank you very much to everybody who's been watching this at home, and thank you to the councillors for their active participation in tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Did a really good job.